Blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today our read was in excuse me, Ezekiel chapter 25, chapter 29 verses 1 through 16, and then we read chapters 30 and 31. Hope you're able to get these read ahead of time. And I will tell you that there are not, or at least I didn't find a whole lot of law enforcement takeaways in today's read. As a matter of fact, I didn't find anything that I thought was a law enforcement takeaway. Today's read was all specifically about basically prophecies or oracles about nations that had been lifelong enemies of Israel. And so everything in today's read was kind of an oracle or a lament about how they were going to fall, how destruction was going to come upon them for the things that they had done to Israel. And the nations that were picked, there's actually, if you look from chapters 25 through 31, even including the chapter 26, 27, 28, which we're going to read tomorrow, there are 7 nations that judgment's pronounced upon. But we'll get into what we read about today. And the first one he starts out with is the Ammonites. And these people were the descendants of Lot. And if you remember, Abraham was Lot's nephew. And they both came into the promised land together. They actually became so prosperous that they had to divide the land between them. And Lot went to the land that had Sodom and Gomorrah in it, and those lands were destroyed. But Lot became, his people became a nation, the Ammonites. And the Ammonites were a lifelong enemy of the Israelites. Next, there were the Moabites who were prophesied against, and the Moabites have a checkered past, a history with Israel going way back. Ruth was a Moabite. And we know she married Boaz, and she is in Jesus's family tree. The Moabites, in the beginning of before David became king, when he was running from Saul, there was a Moabite town that protected David's family. But then later David would destroy the Moabites, and there's just these wars back and forth between Israel and the Moabites. The Edomites, if you remember Esau, who was the twin of Jacob and Esau, and we saw and read about those two guys, and how they always struggled back and forth. Esau accusing Jacob of stealing his birthright and stealing his blessing from his father. But Jacob, was one of the patriarchs. But Esau and the Edomites were always giving Israel trouble. And they do something very specific that we haven't got to yet. And I'll just tell you, in the book of Obadiah, we're going to see something that the Edomites do that really, really angered God. I think they had done enough in the past to warrant this anyway, but they do something in the book of Obadiah that we'll get to that you'll see. The fourth in this first part of the read, the fourth nation is the Philistines. And if you remember from our reads of 1st and 2nd Samuel, when Saul was king and David was king, the Philistines seemed to be the number one enemy of that period and that time. And they were always attacking Israel. As a matter of fact, I think it was the Moabites who attacked Gideon, but I'm not sure. Anyway, all these people have been long-standing enemies of Israel. So God prophesies, or Ezekiel prophesies the words of God, and he says they're going to be destroyed. Then we jump over and we read 29, 30, and 31, and we only read half of 29, but this is a big lament about Egypt. And I looked at one of the commentaries, and they compared the downfall of Egypt to the sinking of the Titanic. And if you remember, the Titanic, they said, was the greatest boat ever built, modern marvel, and that God himself could not even sink this ship. they were so proud of that ship and so arrogant about it. Egypt was the same way. They were so proud and they were so arrogant to the point that pharaohs believed that they were gods. And you see here that the pharaohs even said, we're the ones who created the Nile, and we're the ones who um, have control over what the Nile does. And God's like, no, you don't. I created the Nile. That's mine. But there's this big lament about Egypt and kind of a comparison with Egypt and the Assyrians. And Assyrians are represented by that huge cedar tree that you read about. And there's several prophecies before this that talk about Assyria being this cedar tree. If you remember the big eagles and the top of the cedar tree and all that. But very interesting read today. Tomorrow we're going to be in Ezekiel. Like I said, we're going to read the in-between that we didn't catch today. We're going to read 26, 27, 28. That's going to take up, there's two more nations. One is Tyre, and they are a huge economic rival of Israel. So read those. Come back here tomorrow. Let's get another, see if we can get a takeaway out of that one. In the meantime, you guys be safe.